We're going live. We're going live.
Oh, are we? Oh,
It's the Combat Sports Guy.
hey,
Jeremy's here.
hey, hey.
Jeremy's back. We're back again. We're here to talk about a few topics, a few important topics for today. Starting with the boxing news, we got William Zepeda is reportedly facing George Kambosos or Tevin Farmer on November 16th in Saudi Arabia. Are these good tune-ups for Zepeda for a potential massive matchup next? I would say honestly, I mean, their fights. I guess they're step-up fights based on the people that he's fought prior to this. I would actually, you know what, might even be a step down because, in my opinion, Cabrera I think could probably get a decision off of George Kambosos. So I don't know. It's pretty much just another contender fight. George Kambosos at this point is just here to make fighters like Zepeda look good. Tevin Farmer might even be a tougher matchup for Zepeda than Kambosos is at this point. But I don't even know. I mean, it's tough to say how this is gonna really play out. I think for sure he's beating these two guys, and he's probably knocking. I mean, he probably is gonna knock them both out. Not emphatically, but maybe like a TKO for sure. Um, but I don't know, or like just a stoppage in general. But is it going to set up a massive fight? I mean, it just depends on who wants to fight Zepeda. Zepeda is kind of the dark horse of this division. He's not unbeatable, but he's definitely a tough fight for anybody that takes it. But I'm gonna let you take this topic, Jeremy. What do you think? Do you think that this is a good move for Zepeda, and is this a good move in general to set up maybe a bigger fight down the line for him?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think these two opponents are probably used as like tune-ups, if anything. I can't imagine them, being anything more like maybe like what's it called? Maybe like not. I wouldn't imagine like there's like an interim, what's it called? Championship, interim championship on the line. Can't imagine that again. There's not too much at stake here. But I mean, honestly, the fans are winning with this when we get to see William Zepeda back in the ring. Always an entertaining fighter to watch. And I would imagine, I feel like Kambosos might be the one out of between him and Tevin Farmer, just for the sole reason that Kambosos is a name. He's a name, So it's like, oh, William Zepeda knocks out George Kambosos. Holy crap. He's knocked out a former undisputed, or was it unified or undisputed? I think it was undisputed, right?
George Kambosos, yeah,
he was
undisputed.
he was undisputed, right? So he was like, oh, he knocked out a former undisputed champion. So I feel like that's kind of the approach that they kind of want to go to. And obviously, it's no secret that William Zepeda is already working, or like Turkey Al Sheikh wants to work with William Zepeda already. So
yeah,
he's going to try to build up again, kind of his guy as much as he possibly can, in order to set up, Zepeda versus Shakur. Shoot, maybe we might even see Zepeda versus Tank one day. Maybe Zepeda versus Loma. Maybe Zepeda versus Berenching. It's definitely this kind of fight is setting up something, and I think it's also it makes sense that Shakur and Zepeda are fighting nearly at the same time. So that way, should that be the next fight, they not like one fighter hasn't been inactive for longer, like much longer than the other fighter. So they should, the time frames kind of work out with each other. So yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of what they're building up to here, but I mean, only time will tell. I'm super excited to see where this goes because obviously Zepeda is, he's still pretty young and has plenty of gas left in the tank, and he's a killer. He's a killer, and he's fun to watch. And and he will definitely become a fan favorite. Not that he's already, actually, he already kind of is a fan favorite, but like it's kind of one of those things where it's like if if you've seen William Zepeda fight, it's going to be a good one. So that's what I think it's going to be, building up to.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. It's just they're building up to something. I wish that fight would have already like been scheduled to happen, but I kind of get where everybody's coming from, and I think that maybe they want to build it up a little bit more. But yeah, I mean, another fight that I guess they're trying to build towards we got here is that the WBO has ordered for Sebastian Fundora to defend his title against Terence Crawford. Does the order mean anything? What does this mean for Errol Spence's 154-pound hopes? I mean, I'll let you take this one away first, Jeremy. What do you think? Do you think that Errol was supposed to get, be more deserving of this? Do you think that Terence is? And do you think that this order even means anything? Do you think Terence is going to take this, or is he just going to wait out maybe a Canelo or another big fighter? What is your perspective on what's happening with this situation?
Man, honestly, at this rate, I wouldn't even be surprised if we see Spence versus Canelo one day at this point. I mean, this, what's it called? Terence Crawford was definitely more deserving of this opportunity at 154, than Errol Spence was. And now that Crawford's the WBA champion, I mean, this is already, it has some kind of marketability written in the stars already, where, the winner of this one, should this ever happen, is one belt away from undisputed, which, I mean, that could mean big things for either, Fundora becoming undisputed at, him, with him being pretty young, and then Crawford becoming undisputed in 3 different weight classes. I mean, that the possibilities are endless with this one. And I mean, I think the thing about orders is tough. Orders lately, from what we've seen, the most that can happen, or if anything, Fundora could literally vacate the belt and he could still be WBC champion, which, I mean, if that happens, it would make sense too. But I mean, orders at this rate, I feel like they don't mean much. And especially when you're holding 2 out of the four major belts, I think, I don't imagine this one happening, but I mean, it's cool that, I mean, I like the prospect that maybe it could happen because of this order, but from when this was announced to now, it seems like there hasn't been much talk about it. So, I mean, I don't think it's looking too good for either side to maybe get this fight.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of talk about it, and also they didn't really sell too well with Madrimov, and I think that Turki Al-Sheikh wants Crawford, if he's gonna fight, to get a fight that's actually going to sell well and that is worth Crawford's time. This fight, I mean, obviously it is legacy wise. Maybe not really, because Crawford already won a 154-pound championship. He doesn't really need another. Nowadays we're really used to needing everybody to unify every weight class, but sometimes, you go back 10, 15 years ago, Manny Pacquiao never unified a division. Mayweather never unified a division. Oscar De La Hoya came close, but he never unified a division. So a lot of the greatest fighters that people talk about from the previous generation to this, or slightly more than that, they never unified. So, to hold it against Crawford and say that Crawford has to unify at 154, has to take up this fight with Fundora, maybe doesn't make sense for them, in the sense that they want to sell pay-per-views and they want him to fight somebody bigger. And Crawford has already said that he wants a guy that's going to bring in that money with him. So I don't really blame him. I would just say that it's just going to be hard to find an opponent that can do that. Maybe they could build towards a Virgil Ortiz fight. It's going to be a very exciting fight if it does happen. And I don't know. I think the Virgil Ortiz fight would be best for Crawford, or maybe even a Canelo fight, if that's able to happen. It would be great for Crawford, not necessarily Canelo, but great for Crawford. And it all just depends, obviously, on what they're able to offer the fighters, and even if Saudi Arabia is even interested in making those fights. So I don't think they're interested in making a Fundora fight. I could be wrong, but I don't know. It's Crawford definitely is more deserving of this title shot than Errol is, in the sense that Crawford already fought at 154. He's already won a championship at 154. Errol, meanwhile, just walked into the ring, challenged Fundora. I mean, yeah, he was a great 147-pound champion, but I think that he may have to prove himself at this weight class before he gets a title shot, because that time of him just getting a title shot out of nowhere kind of just came and went. So I don't know. I think it's up in the air. You're right. A lot of these a lot of these sanctioning bodies in boxing, they'll order something, but a lot of times those fights just don't end up happening because negotiations just fall off, and it's just not worth much for the fighters to defend these titles against guys that are just not going to sell. Um, so yeah, no, I definitely agree that maybe Crawford's looking for that Canelo fight instead, and he might just wait out Canelo or another big name.
Yeah. I mean, and even then, who knows if that Canelo fight's going to happen, which, I mean, is still looking like. Well, I mean, Canelo said himself that he's focused on Berlanga right now, which
Right.
is understandable. And then that once that fight's over, then he'll talk about what's next. But I can't imagine. But maybe, I mean, it still could be, I still got Canelo beating Crawford, to be honest.
Yeah,
The weight difference is too much.
Yeah, weight difference. Yeah, no, for sure. If Canelo fights Crawford, Canelo will win with the weight difference. I mean, Crawford's going to give him a hell of a fight in terms of
Yeah.
volume, but I mean, it's really going to depend on who gets gets their fight in the most. So like Canelo, it's going to be like he really has to pound Crawford down in the sense of like, um, you know, pause. But he's really got to, like he's got to use the heavy hands that he has to really break down Crawford. And Crawford's going to have to do what Mayweather did and kind of just be a little bit more smooth with his movements in the ring and kind of evading punches, countering, and even pushing Canelo back, which I definitely believe Crawford can do just because of how educated of a jab he has, the volume he carries. It is going to be a tough fight for Canelo. But I think that if it's at 168, it's on Canelo's home turf in terms of weight class. So that's why I think that Canelo would definitely take that fight against Crawford.
Yep.
But talking about Canelo, moving in to the topic that we have about Canelo. Canelo says that if the money is right and he wins on September 14th, his clash against Edgar Berlanga, he is open to making a fight with Crawford. Can he stay true to his word? I'll let you take this one first, Jeremy. Do you think that Canelo is honest about this, or do you think that he is going to outprice himself like he did with Benavidez, or is he just not interested in the Crawford fight altogether?
Yeah, I mean, I won't lie to you. I completely forgot that I wrote in this headline, but I mean, it's just so tough. It's tough. I mean, I'm not gonna say I don't trust Canelo that he's gonna stay true to his word, but I mean, if the money is right, I mean, what's his definition of what is the figure that he wants to fight Crawford?
The figure that he wants is exactly what Saudi Arabia paid Tyson Fury. So he's looking at like 150 to $200 million range or something like that.
And honestly, I mean, if they're paying Tyson Fury that much, I think they got to pay Canelo more than that. Because I mean, it's Canelo. He's the pay-per-view king of boxing right now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any question about it in the sense that I think they will eventually come together and make an event.
Yeah.
But it may not be a Crawford Canelo event. It may be in the form of a Benavidez Canelo. Surprisingly enough, maybe even a Bivol Canelo rematch or something.
Yeah.
Because Canelo just doesn't see it for him. He doesn't see the legacy he gains out of beating Crawford. I mean, it really is tough because when you think about it, like I guess it would be the closest thing that he could get to getting back at him, like at Mayweather, but it's not really like that because Crawford and Mayweather are two different fighters.
Right.
They're two different styles. They were at different points in their career. So maybe that's the only aspect I could think about this somehow in his head, giving him that legacy idea. But honest to God, it's like he's bullying the smaller guy if he fights Crawford. Realistically, it's like, Crawford fighting Tank. Like Crawford's not interested in fighting Tank for the same reason. What credit is he going to be given if he just pretty much weight bullies a smaller guy?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I think now that you mention a Canelo Bivol rematch, I mean, it only makes sense now that Bivol is working under Riyadh's season basically. And I feel like And that's the one that Canelo wants the most, So if anything, I feel like that's going to be next. If anything, I still am not convinced that Canelo wants anything to do with Benavidez, and I'm not really convinced that like there's nothing that Canelo has said in the past maybe like month, 2 months, where I'm like, oh yeah, this is most likely going to be his next opponent. So honestly, I think he's just going to go for the one that he wants, just that redemption shot at Bivol. I still don't think he's going to beat Bivol, let alone at 175. If should Bivol win against Beterbiev, yeah. So should Bivol win against Beterbiev, I think they might actually give Canelo an undisputed shot before Benavidez. And then if Canelo wins that, then
definitely
Canelo versus Benavidez gets made at 175. And then, if we finally get that. But I think Canelo versus Benavidez at 168 is just out of the question. It's there's no interest for Canelo in that, I think.
No, that's not going to happen. And honestly, actually, Canelo's chances of beating Benavidez go up if he fights him at 175, in the sense that Canelo's power transfers better to the weight class than Benavidez's volume. So Benavidez's volume goes down in that weight class. Canelo's power pretty much just stays consistent, and his style carries over very well. The only reason why Bivol gave Canelo problems is because Bivol just has a high volume and a high clip, and it's hard for a person like Canelo that constantly needs to set himself up for shots to get a shot off on a guy that's just like a pendulum, constantly in and out, combinations. And Benavidez at 175 is really not his natural weight class, it seems like. I mean, I guess it is, but he's kind of learning quickly that he just looked a lot more sloppier than I remember him being at 168, because he went up in weight, and he probably did it just like bulking, in the sense of like not even bulking in muscularity, but just bulking, literally just gaining that weight, just eating a little bit more, not having to cut as much. Maybe that made him look a little more sluggish. So I don't know what Benavidez has to do, but I know that if they fight at 175, Canelo might actually be more interested in a 175 fight against Benavidez. In my eyes, I would imagine it would be like Canelo fights Bivol on a card in Riyadh season, and it would make sense for all parties, because Canelo wants Bivol again, and Riyadh season works well with Bivol. And then Underground Goat is kind of shocked about this one. And it's good to see Underground Goat again. We have not seen him in like I don't know how many shows.
Been a little bit.
And then Benavidez maybe on an undercard on the same Riyadh card, because that's the way they're stacking these cards. They want they want to have contender right underneath these fighters and stuff. It's a long shot, but I think that is if there's going to be a Riyadh season event, I don't think it's going to be a Canelo Crawford fight. I don't think Canelo sees the reason to fight Crawford. I think that he would take a pay cut to get a rematch against Bivol.
Yeah. That, not to mention, I mean, Canelo already has previous experience at 175 with Kovalev, and he beat Kovalev.
I hope that went well, Underground Goat. I hope the business trip went well. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Oh, yeah. No, I was just saying, I mean, he already has that previous experience at 175 with Kovalev. He's already held the title there. I don't think he ever defended it, though, but the fact that he already went up there, he knows kind of what to expect in a way.
Yeah.
And so I do see what's it called, Benavidez having more trouble at 175, and even that fight against Vodzik, it wasn't exactly Benavidez's most impressive performance, but it was still a good performance. I'm not going to take I'm not going to say like that was that was a terrible performance by Benavidez. It was good, and all things considered. I mean, for a first fight, it's as good as it gets.
And the competition level he fought against, like the guy is tough. He was a tough guy.
Tough as nails, really.
Yeah, he was really tough.
Just super strong chin.
And I think that a fight against him and Bivol would play out differently. The only reason why I say that, I mean, I don't think Canelo beats Benavidez at 175, but the Benavidez we saw fight against the Ukrainian guy at 175, that Benavidez versus a Canelo at 175, that would be a very interesting fight and hard to kind of, understand who would come out on top. But I would still favor Benavidez in the sense that I think Benavidez is just a younger guy, and he's just a bigger guy, and he's just going to know how to use his assets better against a Canelo. And I think Benavidez can really do a lot of damage at 175, and he just didn't look good that first fight. And that happens to a lot of fighters. Like Crawford didn't look great against Madrimov, And a lot of guys, it's hard for fighters to look good as they move up because they're human beings. They're not perfect, you know? So, I don't know. There's a lot of possibilities. I just introduced that Bivol thing because I thought about it. I'm like, hey, like where realistically, if Bivol beats Beterbiev, where does he go from there? Canelo beats, Berlanga. Where does he go from there? Canelo's been wanting Bivol, and he really does. So it's like that is a fight that still is not off the table at all.
Yeah, it only makes sense for that to happen, I feel, because it's like obviously he doesn't. I'm not convinced about Benavidez or Crawford. Might as well go with Bivol. If he really is keen on working with with Riyadh.
I don't even know honestly if that's an easier fight, because in terms of like, he might have a better chance beating Crawford than he does like a Bivol,
right?
But I think what he sees though is that if he loses against Bivol again, it doesn't hurt his legacy because he's still a great 168 pounder.
Yeah,
and he can say like, oh, I went up to 175, I tried it, it is what it is, I couldn't do it. But if he fights down and it'll always go down his legacy that whenever he fought down and he wasn't like weight bullying people, that that he couldn't really hang with like guys like Mayweather and Crawford. So maybe he just doesn't want that, and I get it. And it's just hard. It's hard to change Canelo's mind, like in that sense. So I don't know. There's a lot to unpack there, but there's also lots to unpack in our next segment, and we got our segment of the week, close fight series. This week we're going to be talking about Canelo versus Triple G1. Pretty much for this one, we're mainly just going to be talking about our scorecards and why we scored certain rounds for certain people. So I'm just gonna have to actually look at my scorecard because I haven't even looked at it in a while. But I have notes and everything for my scorecard. So let's see how this broke down. Canelo versus Triple G. Do you have yours up, Jeremy? Or
I need to pull my scorecard up right now.
It was a 18, 17 fight?
It was a 2017, yeah.
2017 fight. All right. Well,
there too.
So the story of the Canelo versus Triple G fight. All right. So the story of the Canelo Triple G fight for my scorecard. I guess I'll start it first, Jeremy, and then I'll let you take it from. Or do you want to go like momentum based? Do you want to talk about it maybe 3 rounds at a time, or do you want to just go? I'll go and then you go.
Yeah. Let me just pull it up here.
Street saying Triple G on all 3. All right. I'll talk about
I don't know about all 3, but
that is actually crazy work. Jeremy, can you pull up the picture again?
Yeah, my fault. All 3 is a little tough. I don't know about all 3.
No, I think that the third one for sure Canelo won. But the first 2 are very tough to say. I would say it's very hard. People have Canelo losing both of those first 2. So for my scorecard, originally when I first watched this fight, I had Canelo winning by a round, but I considered that realistically the CompuBox and a few numbers and just like I think Triple G's consistency, I think in the 6th, or no, not in the 6th, but in the 9th. I made me just want to give it to Triple G because Triple G was just more consistent throughout the fight. He had the consistent jab, and Canelo at times just looked like he was just running. But I mean, it's hard because Canelo was evading a lot of shots, and I didn't see Triple G land as much as people think he landed. And honestly, like Triple G did not really put in a clinic of cutting off the ring as much as I thought he had, especially when you're watching highlights and stuff. It looked like a lot of Triple G just following Canelo, like at times being a decent ring general. But what Triple G did do is he had a good like tapping jab. So consistently Triple G was just hitting Canelo with that jab, and it's a stiff, strong jab. But at times it was just like the shots that Triple G was landing was more volume, but then it would be like he landed 3 shots and then Canelo would land like a 3-shot combination that sounded like like that it hurt way more than what Triple G landed, just because Canelo does that. He has that effect. Like he just throws consistent power punches and counters all the time. So For the first 3 rounds, I had it Canelo being the better ring general overall. But then when I moved into the 4th and 5th round, I knew that Triple G just started. I feel like Triple G didn't show up to this fight until the 4th round, and when he showed up, he really did show up and he showed out. And I think he got the 4th and he got the 5th. The 6th, I ended up giving to Canelo just because I thought Canelo just countered. He just out countered Triple G in this round. The 7th and 8th and 9th, I gave to Triple G, no doubt. The last 3 rounds is where people really had Canelo tying up the fight for himself. For me, one of those rounds, I didn't see him winning. But the 6th round kind of counteracts that for me in the sense that so the 10th round, I think that was a Canelo round. The 11th round, I do not believe was a Canelo round. A lot of people see the 11th round as pretty split. Most people actually have it Triple G over Canelo, so I agree with that. I definitely have Canelo winning the 10th, though, and the 12th is for sure a Canelo round, no doubt. So I have him winning the 12th. I have him winning the 10th. The 11th, I have him losing. And then I have him losing a lot of the middle rounds, but I don't see him losing every single middle round. I think the 6th round is definitely a round in which Canelo he outboxed Triple G that round, but every other round aside of that in the middle portion was a pretty dominant section of the fight for Triple G. And then I think Canelo picked it up the last 3 rounds, but it is up in the air. I mean, I watched the fight and it was just a competitive middleweight fight. Tough to really say, but I would say that I don't disagree with people that have Triple G winning this fight, but I cannot see Triple G winning this fight by more than a margin of 1 round. So I'm going to let you take it away. So, I mean, my end scorecard for this fight was 114, a draw between Canelo Triple G, their first fight. I didn't see I just didn't see it any other way.
Yeah. So unfortunately, somehow, some way, my scorecard got erased. Poof. However, the one thing that I do remember from my scorecard, and the one thing that I remember was very different. I gave Triple G the very first round. I thought he was basically just jabbing Canelo, and Canelo landed, what was it, maybe like 2 really big body shots, I think they were. But to me, that was really what I like. To me, that really felt like it was it. I just felt like Triple G was just doing more that round, and that's kind of why my idea of like why I gave it to him. I mean, he just felt like he was doing something more effective. But then rounds 2 and 3, like I do agree, like those were definitely Canelo rounds for sure. I did give those to Canelo. My starting off, actually, my final scorecard was 114. Yeah, it was originally 113, I think, in favor of Triple G. But what's it called? I realized how stupid it was giving Triple G that 12th round, because he really didn't win that thing. I had to rewatch it, and then I was like, yeah, no, that was a stupid score, like on my end, just to give Triple G the win. But no, I ended up switching that one, and that's what made it 114. So yeah, I definitely saw it 114 for for this fight.
I saw this fight a draw, but I could see that there's more possibilities where people just think that Triple G was more consistent.
Yeah,
if I didn't give Canelo the 6th round, then Triple G would have won the fight. If I gave Triple G the if I gave Triple G the 6th round, then Triple G wins the fight. If I gave Canelo the I think the 9th round was what I gave him. Then originally I thought Canelo would edge it out with that 9th round, but realistically that round I couldn't see him winning because, when you break it down, Canelo only landed 1 good shot in the 9th round of their first fight, and the rest was just Triple G. So I mean that's the story of the fight in general. It's just Canelo just he tends to do that. He steals the judges' scorecards just by being the stronger power puncher. But I did have that first fight 114. Me and Jerry both have it 114. It's one of those fights where people say it's very easy to score, but when you watch it, it's a lot harder to score, especially when you're scoring it round by round.
There was like 4 rounds where I had to, go back and be like, did I really catch every detail of this fight just to be sure?
And for me, like I'll watch fights and I realize like, dude, like sometimes it's tough to judge fights because there's so much going on, and the fights, you only win a round in boxing by a margin. You only win by 1 point. And that's a great system for boxing because in reality, when you're watching a boxing fight live, there is like, especially against two professionals, there is such a small margin that's separating these two guys. And it's really momentum at that point that just starts taking the show and as to who wins the fight. But yeah, no, I just realized that, bro, like sometimes like people, they'll have a great fight, but then the other guy wins because he won more rounds. And that's what
Yeah.
happened. Even when we went to the Riyadh season event, Pitbull Cruz had a great fight, but he lost the majority of the rounds. And so it's like, what do you do with fights like that? And so with Triple G and Canelo won, when I first watched it as a kid, I didn't know much about boxing, but I believed Canelo won. Now that I watch it again, at first I had Canelo edging it out slightly, but then I was like, I can't do that because that 9th round realistically has to go to Triple G. He did the better work. But I can't see this fight being more than a 1 round margin between these two. That first fight it has to be one of the legendary fights. Their trilogy is just a legendary trilogy.
Yeah.
Even the third fight, the third fight, I actually had it really close. I had it 115, 113 for Canelo, just because Triple G, every single one of these fights, Triple G is consistent, but he does not show up for a lot of rounds. Like it almost like is like Triple G didn't show up to the building just because of how Canelo makes him miss. But then Triple G ultimately has the mental strength to say like, hey, no, like I'm here and I'm going to show Canelo that, I don't mess around, that he is who he is for a reason. He has really good cardio, really good chin, really good volume. And talking about that, I'm just thinking, like, as I'm going through this, I'm like, he's already older, but I heard recently that Riyadh season was offering him a fight against Crawford. So I don't know what that is about. If he takes it, I think that it'd actually be kind of interesting if he could get back into shape. But
He shouldn't.
shouldn't.
Should no. I wouldn't. I don't want to see that. I really don't, man.
Do you
Triple
think
G's
he's
old, man. He's old. There's
Yeah.
just some people it's almost like when wrestling brings back, like WWE brings back like Stone Cold Steve Austin to wrestle at like 50 something years old. I think you can do that because that's obviously like it's scripted. It's not.
Yeah,
I with this kind of with the sport like boxing. I mean, that's just not good.
Yeah,
I think it's good.
I mean, on that note, like I think that's the best way that they could have brought back Steve, in the sense that it wasn't that bad. I think it was up until like
It was entertaining.
I thought it was actually pretty. I actually thought it was a pretty good match. I just thought like once they started doing the other stuff with like Vince and all that, it really got really bad. But Kevin, it was very weird how they set it up, because I was like, don't lie to the people and make it seem like you're not going to just have Stone Cold have a match. Like just don't advertise it as, you know what I'm saying? I don't know. But our last news of the day that we got set up here is we got UFC news. We got, will we ever see John Jones versus Tom Aspinall? Man, let's figure this one out. Oh man, this is the real question is, are we ever going to see John Jones versus Stipe Miocic, which is literally what's
Are we ever going to see John Jones, period, huh?
Like that's literally what's been holding up the division, is just like, are we going to see John Jones fight Stipe? Realistically, again, talking about older fighters, I don't really want to see that. I don't want to see Stipe fight anymore. I think that Stipe, like, to have a 3-year layoff after getting knocked out the way he did, it's ridiculous. He is in the position that Cain Velasquez was when he fought Francis Ngannou. And it's like that, the exact thing that happened with Cain is going to happen with Stipe. He's going to probably get knocked out. There's going to be some sort of weird freakish injury that causes Stipe to not really be able to be the Stipe people think he is. I don't think anybody's lying to themselves. Stipe is no longer the fighter that he was, in the sense that, come on, bro. He's on a 3-year layoff. He's pushing 40, or maybe he's past 40. I don't know. And his last fight, he got knocked out cold by Francis Ngannou. And he should not be fighting, in my opinion. He just should not be fighting. The only reason why he would take a fight like that is because it's a legacy fight, and he's probably going to get paid $1 million for that fight. So I don't blame him. But that fight shouldn't happen. And Aspinall he has the interim belt. I don't know why the UFC hasn't set this fight up. It's a fight that needs to happen. If not, they should probably strip John Jones, and then just give it to Tom Aspinall. And there's no problem because if John Jones comes back to fight, he could just fight for the title again and then become a 2-time heavyweight champion if he wins. So it's like John doesn't really lose anything from losing the belt. Like he's gonna defend no matter what. John Jones is gonna defend the belt one time and he's gonna retire. I do believe that genuinely this is his last fight if he even has this fight. He's in a situation that Connor's in the sense that these are just like the old school guys where like the generation, it's crazy, man. Like these guys were killing it in the late 2010s, and now we're already halfway through the 2020s, and these guys are still out here trying to fight. And it's like realistically, they shouldn't really be out there anymore. So I don't know. What do you think, Jeremy? Do you think that fight's gonna even happen?
No, it's not. I don't think so, man. With the way Dana White just basically gives John Jones what he wants, and he kind of keeps forgiving John Jones after plenty of events in the past. Like at this rate, I don't think it's ever going to happen. If John Jones rides off into the sunset, he's basically taking the belt with him in a way.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think he's ever going to defend it against Aspinall. And yeah, I completely agree with the whole Stipe part. I mean, Stipe is much older. The last fight went horribly for him.
Oh yeah.
And and not only that, it's inactivity too. I mean, John Jones is going to make quick work of Stipe, and then Stipe obviously gets a nice payday, which is great for him. But at the same time, I mean, at what cost, health-wise,
Yeah.
Whatever it may be. So yeah, I think it's just a really ugly situation for the heavyweight division. And honestly, the heavyweight division, I mean, lately, I mean, it's not. I feel that it's not what it once was, because of this very reason where. You had so many talks about John Jones. It feels like a lot of people, and then, what's it called? Basically Stipe, in my opinion, was like the last good champion.
Yeah.
Ngannou, he did his thing, but I mean, he kind of had his own contract disputes with the UFC, or he had his own disputes with the UFC constantly, and that held up the division as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have a change of hands of the title with John Jones now, and the same thing is happening where it's just
the heavyweight division for the UFC being as successful as it has been, it's been very it's kind of funny because the one division where boxing has actually kind of realistically never really been held up, aside of maybe it just not being popular for a while, but it never was held up, is the heavyweight division. Nobody really ever held up that division in boxing, and it's still known as the reason why people go to watch boxing. Yeah. But when you look at the UFC, it's crazy how big of a name they've been able to make off of the smaller guys, because realistically the UFC has not had a consistent heavyweight division since the year 2015, 2016, I would say, in the sense of just how well that division used to move. Since then, actually 2017, 2018, I don't know. It's tough because the UFC had great trilogies. They've had Cain Velasquez versus Junior Dos Santos. They've had Daniel Cormier versus Stipe. They had a lot of good rivalries in the heavyweight division, and they used to have Mark Hunt. They used to have Stefan Struve. They used to have a lot of these guys that were always active and always kind of filling out those cards. But Brock Lesnar. So they had a lot of great stars that really helped the UFC as a whole. But I think they have a huge hole in their system, in the sense that, we got Tai Tuivasa, but he realistically is not where he was at anymore. He's really done. And a lot of the other guys no one really cares for. And, that's kind of the state of the heavyweight division in the UFC. And it's really being held up, and it's been held up, with the contract disputes with Francis. By the way, he was, he didn't outprice himself. He knew what he was worth, and he decided to go into boxing. So, that's what he did. And he decided to go to the PFL. That's part of the game. He was smart about that. But, you look at other people, and it's like, man, like Tom Aspinall, he deserves to be a champion, and he deserves to take this division to the next step and fight, other contenders that are hungry and really get this heavyweight division going. But I don't know, Jeremy, what do you think about the heavyweight division in the UFC?
It's not good anymore. It's not, and I don't see it improving anytime soon. Truthfully,
Yeah.
Just for the reason, for this very reason, it's being held up right now. And should Tom Aspinall become champion, I mean, I trust that he, isn't going to hold up the division the way John Jones is. But I mean, you can only do so much with what you got, like at this very moment. With a champion who doesn't want to fight, and then the interim champion begging for a fight, basically,
Right.
constantly. You can only do so much with that, and even then, Tom Aspinall is basically doing the champion's work, where he's fighting. He just fought Curtis Blades, who was who is a legit title contender. And now Aspinall's next fight is probably going to be another title contender. So he's basically doing what John Jones should have been doing this entire time, but because John Jones just has so many problems outside, we're just not seeing any movement in the heavyweight division, which is really tragic for the division because of how many greats have been in that division, and that division's history and all that stuff. Yeah. So hopefully we can see some improvement soon. However, I doubt it.
You're right. Hopefully we'll see some improvements. And it's tough, because the division doesn't move too fast. But hey, what can you do? We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. We'll talk about how the UFC plays out. They have a big event coming up with Noche UFC, and Canelo. He still has to get past Edgar Berlanga, even if he's thinking about other stuff. He's still got to get past him. So we'll see how everything plays out. But in the meantime, it's been a great time with the Master Chief and the Underground Goat again, always being in our stream, supporting us. We appreciate it. It's your combat sports guy, and we are out, guys.